Angel Reese traded to the Atlanta Dream, as you guys know. Jeff Pagliocca couldn't wait to send her packing. See ya. In fact, reports are coming out that Jeff Pagliocca was so excited about sending Angel Reese to Atlanta, he personally packed her bags. Don't lift a hand, Miss Reese. I got this for you. Hey, you need a car too? Hey, taxi! Picked up her luggage, threw it in the backseat of a taxi, said, hasta la vista, baby. Hasta la vista. Wouldn't want to see you again.
Something feels off when a team ships out its biggest headline maker and suddenly looks lighter, almost like they just escaped something they could not fix. Oh, hesitation, no second guessing, just relief wrapped in polite statements. Statements. That is the strange energy around the split between Chicago Sky and Angel Reese, a move that looks routine on the surface but feels like a quiet emergency exit underneath. So what really happened behind closed doors, underneath? And why does this feel less like a trade and more like a warning sign?
Chicago Sky GM Jeff Pagliocca is completely done with Angel Reese. He's looking to get rid of her. He had just made a statement. The Chicago Sky sent out a statement to Angel Reese, and I'm pretty sure she wants out as well. I mean, she refused to play in games last season. She pretty much quit on the team, and none of the current players want anything to do with her. So, we remember Angel Reese's mysterious back injury the last few games of the season, where she basically refused to get in the games upon being suspended I believe by the league and the team. The team suspended her for a first half.
Now, here is the part nobody wants to say too loudly. When a franchise moves that fast, that decisively, and that willingly, it usually is not about talent. It is about tolerance. At first, everything looked like a perfect match.
Angel Reese did not request a trade from Chicago. The Chicago Sky said, we just don't want to deal with the headache. We don't care. We don't want her here. She's been a locker room cancer from the jump. Quits the first year, quits the second year, fakes a back in my neck, my back, fakes a back injury, doesn't even finish her first season of Unrivaled, can't be bothered with her second season, so she just comes in late.
Reese came into the league with attention already glued to her name, the kind of attention that sells jerseys, drives clicks, and makes even casual fans suddenly care about regular season games. She was not just a rookie. She was a storyline. And for a team like Chicago trying to stay relevant in a rapidly evolving WNBA landscape, that kind of spotlight should have been a blessing.
Reese has been traded from the Chicago Sky to the Atlanta Dream. Now, this is actually something that didn't surprise me. I actually didn't expect to see Angel Reese in a Chicago Sky jersey this season, especially with how her season ended last year with the Chicago Sky. There was clearly some friction between her and the franchise, and it seems like Angel Reese is very happy to be going to Atlanta. But the thing that did surprise me about this trade is the details of it. So let me break it down for you guys. So Atlanta will receive, of course, Angel Reese and the right to swap a second-round pick with the Chicago Sky in 2028.
But attention is only valuable when it aligns with structure, and that is where things started to shift. Because what people thought they were getting was a rising star who would dominate headlines and energize the locker room. What they may have actually gotten was a constant storm that never quite settled.
Chicago should not be hosting All-Star this season. Y'all have no stars on your team. You lost Angel Reese, your star on and off the court. She's the PR draw and the best player on the court, and you lost her. Atlanta, they're up, they're winning, have so much fun, and I hope she has so much fun there, because she does deserve a better environment. But like, what is the Sky gonna do? Because it's not like they're picking up anyone in free agency. No one is choosing to go to the Sky. They are consistently voted like the worst run franchise. And I do think that's why they had to trade a draft pick during the expansion draft to protect more players, because they know they're not going to be able to pick up it.
There is a difference between confidence and disruption, and somewhere along the way, that line started to blur. Reports may say there was no contention, but the behavior around the situation tells a completely different story. When a player does not request a trade yet still ends up moved quickly and quietly, it suggests the decision came from one side, and it was not the player holding the clipboard in the front office. And that brings everything into focus. This was not a mutual breakup. This was a team making a decision that it could no longer manage. What came with the player, regardless of what the player brought on the court? Because let's be honest for a second, If this were purely about basketball, the expectations, questionable availability, tension, and game environments, and, most importantly, the kind of locker room energy that people only talk about after the fact, because nobody calls someone a locker room issue while they are still trying to make it work. That label only shows up when the decision has already been made, and once that label appears, it spreads quickly.
Been peeled back on some more of the specifics, the fallout, if you were, behind the Angel Reese trade, and the fact that we have now found out that Angel did not request the trade. The Chicago Sky wanted Angel Reese out of their organization. I mean, if you throw your teammates under the bus, if you decide you don't want to finish the season, you do all these things, you cause a bunch of drama.
You start hearing things about commitment, about consistency, about whether a player is fully invested in the team or just in the spotlight. You hear about teammates who seem distant, about press conferences that feel incomplete, about moments where the focus shifts away from the team and directly onto one individual. And that is when a franchise starts asking a dangerous question. Is the attention helping us win, or is it slowly pulling us apart? Because attention without alignment becomes a distraction. And distraction in professional sports is expensive. Now here is where things get even more interesting. Because while all of this was happening, there were players on that roster who were quietly waiting. Players like Camila Cardoso, who came in with size, presence, and potential, but never quite got the full runway to show it consistently. And suddenly, with Reese out of the picture, the conversation shifts. Now it becomes about opportunity. Now it becomes about structure. Now it becomes about seeing what this team actually looks like this without the noise. And that is where the real pressure begins, not on Reese, but on Chicago. Because if the Skies start winning, if the rotations look smoother, if the locker room energy stabilizes, then the narrative flips instantly. What once looked like a risky move suddenly starts looking like a calculated reset, and people will not say they lost a star. They will say they solved a problem. That is a brutal shift. But it is how sports work.
First-round picks for Angel Reese. Are the Atlanta Dream serious? I get she's a two-time All-Star, but all she does is rebound. Unfortunately, rebounds don't win games. Let's compare Reese to her rival, Caitlin Clark, who literally saved the WNBA. Angel Reese gets traded in her third year because the Chicago Sky realized they can't build around her. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark won Rookie of the Year and is the untouchable face of the league. It really isn't a competition. You think the Fever would ever trade Caitlin for 2 first-round picks? She'd cost the team the entire...
At the same time, players like Hailey Van Lith now exist in a completely different environment. Without the constant spotlight pulling in one direction, there is space for others to breathe, develop, and define their own roles without being overshadowed by a personality that dominated every storyline. And whether people want to admit it or not, that kind of freedom matters. Because basketball is not just about talent, it is about rhythm, and rhythm cannot exist in chaos. Meanwhile, Reese lands with the Atlanta Dream, a team that now becomes a question. Every moment becomes amplified, and if things go well, Reese looks like the misunderstood star who simply needed the right environment. But if things go sideways, the conversation gets uncomfortable very quickly. Because then it is no longer about fit, it becomes about patterns, and patterns are hard to defend. There is also this lingering tension and the background, the kind that makes fans lean forward a little more than usual. The first matchup between Chicago and Atlanta is no longer just another game on the schedule. It becomes a storyline packed with subtext, with every rebound, every possession, and every reaction being analyzed like it carries hidden meaning. Because it does.
Sky received the Dream's 2027 first-round pick and the Dream's 2028 first-round pick. That's it, you guys. 2 first-round picks for Angel Reese. That is it. And if we look at the Atlanta Dream from last season, they were a really solid team. So adding Angel Reese to the mix with this Atlanta Dream team, if they're able to keep the roster at all similar to what they had last year, this Atlanta Dream team is definitely going to be a scary squad.
And the answer will not come from press releases. It will come from results. Now, here is where the humor sneaks in, because the situation almost feels too dramatic to be real. The idea that a general manager would be so eager to move a player that the deal feels rushed, almost like they were trying to get it done before anyone could change their mind, creates an image that is both exaggerated and strangely believable. Not because it literally happened, it becomes a silent argument between two narratives. Was Chicago wrong for letting her go, or were they right for moving on? That way, but because the energy around the move suggests urgency. And urgency in sports is rarely randomness, is usually the result of something building behind the scenes. Something that finally reached a point where the front office said, this cannot continue. And when a team reaches that point, they are no longer negotiating from a position of strength. They are negotiating from a position of necessity. Which explains why some people believe Chicago did not maximize the return. Because sometimes getting value is not the priority, getting peace is. And peace in a locker room sparks conversation and keeps people engaged in ways that not every player can. But being the face of a league requires more than visibility. It requires consistency, leadership, and the ability to elevate everyone around you. Because a face represents stability, not chaos.
Barbie night. And in that video, I said, you got to wonder if they're trading Angel Reese. And here we are. And here we are. So let's check this out. Sources told me, Alexa Philippou, sources told me and Kendra Andrews, Angel Reese did not request a trade, but the Sky worked closely with her team to find her a new home, and there was no contention between two parties.
And that is where the debate gets complicated, because Reese is undeniably impactful, but impact alone does not define legacy. Now the real question becomes what happens next. Does Chicago become a more cohesive unit that quietly climbs into playoff contention, proving that chemistry outweighs individual attention? Or does Atlanta unlock something in Reese that turns this entire situation into a redemption arc, flipping the narrative and making does Chicago look like the team that let go of something special too soon? Because both outcomes are possible, and that uncertainty is exactly what makes this story so compelling. There is also the fact that they are built-in results, and results are the only thing that can settle a situation like this. If Reese thrives in Atlanta, the narrative shifts toward growth and opportunity. If she struggles, the narrative hardens into criticism and doubt. And if Chicago improves without her, the story becomes something even more uncomfortable. Becomes validation.
Angel Reese told the Chicago Sky, hey, y'all get some better players or I'm out of here. And the Chicago Sky was like, bet, say less. We'll trade your ass to the Atlanta Dream. Yo, what a move by the Chicago Sky. Like, that's big of you. Somebody who's actually bringing in value and some eyeballs to your team, and you say, hey, you're just not worth it. And in the grand scheme of it, I say you probably needed to get rid of her or Cardoso because you just can't have two big.
And somewhere in the middle of that gamble is the truth that nobody fully understands yet. But one thing is certain. The moment Chicago starts winning without her, or the moment Atlanta starts struggling with her, the entire conversation flips instantly. And suddenly, what looked like a shocking decision starts looking inevitable. Which raises one final question that nobody can ignore. Was Angel Reese ever the future of Chicago? Or was she just the loudest chapter in a story the team was already trying to rewrite? And the uncomfortable truth is that sometimes the loudest chapter is also the one a team is most desperate to close. Because once a franchise decides to move on, it does not just erase the player. It rewrites the entire narrative around why that player was there in the first place. What used to be marketed as star power quietly becomes disruption. What once felt like identity suddenly gets labeled as imbalance. And you can already see it in how the conversation is shifting toward structure, discipline, and a more balanced system that does not revolve around one personality dominating the spotlight. This is where players like Camila Cardoso step into a completely different role, not as supporting pieces but as foundational ones.
Reese flat out quit on this team. She threw her teammates under the bus. Ariel Atkins, who sat at the podium and defended Angel Reese earlier in the season. Ariel Atkins don't want nothing to do with Angel Reese and his team. She don't want nothing to do with this. She threw Courtney Vandersloot under the bus, talking about we need a younger point guard. She's old, yada, yada, yada. Just for Courtney Vandersloot to have to get on camera and take shots back at Angel Reese and say, oh, my age isn't a problem and I will be back despite what some people say. Courtney Vandersloot wants to be in Chicago. She will be back, okay? She'll be back. Chicago is home for her. She don't want nothing to do with Angel Reese.
Now the paint belongs to her. Now the expectations are clearer. Now there is no ambiguity about who needs to anchor the interior, control the boards, and bring a consistent physical presence that does not fluctuate with headlines or emotions. And that clarity alone can change everything for a young player trying to establish herself. Because development thrives in stability, not in chaos, at the same time. Hailey Van Lith suddenly has the kind of freedom that every guard quietly hopes for, but rarely gets. Without the gravitational pull of a dominant storyline, she can operate without constantly being pulled into someone else's orbit. She can make mistakes, adjust, grow, and actually play through moments instead of reacting to them. And that matters more than people realize. Because when players feel like they are walking on eggshells, their game tightens. When they feel free, it expands. And if Chicago starts to show signs of that expansion, if the ball movement improves, if the rotations feel more natural, if the energy on the floor looks connected instead of fragmented, then the conversation centerpiece of a debate that follows her into every arena, and the expectations are no longer about potential, they are about proof. This is where everything she does gets magnified. Not just the highlights, but the decisions, the reactions, the consistency, and most importantly, the impact on winning, because that is the one thing that cannot be argued.
I have had players like Candace Parker. They've had players like Elena Delle Donne, the MVP. And to trade away Angel Reese in the prime of her career in a way like this, when you had a star and a cornerstone for your team, that is not a good look.
Who has more direction, the Chicago Sky or the Chicago Bulls? You just lost the biggest name, arguably, in basketball in the city. Well, no, it is the biggest name in basketball in the city. Point blank, Angel Reese is a bigger name than Josh Giddey or Modest Buzelis from a national and international standpoint. Point blank.
It's true. Nationally, yes.
Everybody knows who she is. And
You can debate style, personality, and even effort, but you cannot debate results. And if Atlanta starts stacking wins, if Reese looks locked in, focused, and aligned with her team, then the entire narrative flips into something almost cinematic. Suddenly, she is not the problem Chicago walked away from. She is the star they failed to understand. But if the same patterns start to show up again, if the same questions about consistency, commitment, and chemistry begin to surface, then the story takes a much harsher turn, because then it is no longer about a bad situation. The same attention that helped elevate Reese into a household name is now the very thing that amplifies every criticism. The spotlight brings everything back to that looming, unavoidable moment when Chicago and Atlanta face each other. Because no matter how much both sides try to downplay it, that game is going to carry more weight than any regular season matchup should. And the outcome, whether people admit it or not, will shape the narrative moving forward. If Chicago wins, it reinforces the idea that they made the right decision, that they chose cohesion over chaos and came out stronger because of it. If Atlanta wins, it gives Reese the kind of validation that fuels an entire season, the kind that turns criticism into motivation and doubt into momentum. And if the game is messy, emotional, and unpredictable, then it only adds fuel to a story that already feels like it was designed for drama.